The following program is an original production of WICC PBS Chicago.
This week on In the Loop, women entrepreneurs. Women in corporate suites and in politics have come a long way, but does the glass ceiling still exist? Many say it's cracked, but not broken.
We're not going anywhere. We are leaders. You have to hear our voices.
When it comes to politics, women hold less than half of Illinois' House and Senate seats. And while companies are investing in diversity and leadership programs, is something still missing?
There are fewer women serving in federal office, in state and local office than are in our population.
Stay tuned for a look at women and the glass ceiling, right here, right now, on tonight's In the Loop.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lauren Cohn. Many Americans believe that the presidential election would show history in the making. For the first time, it seemed a highly qualified woman was positioned to shatter the highest political glass ceiling. But when the votes were cast, that didn't happen. Was it just politics or something more? And what about women who bump up against the glass ceiling in business? Women make up half of America's workforce, but despite their success, men continue to dominate leadership posts. Tonight, we take a look at why it's still a man's world out there and what is being done to change that. Here with a look at women in the workplace is contributing correspondent Diane Estabrook.
North Suburban Northbrook-based Allstate is one of Chicago's largest and most diverse companies. More than half of its workforce are women. Robin Bronstein worked her way up the corporate ladder at Allstate from procurement specialist to senior manager. She still sees opportunity there.
I continued to attend seminars, workshops. I actually had the opportunity to help work on our strategy to build our employee resource group.
Christy Harris, Allstate's Vice President of Talent Acquisition and Diversity Inclusion, says hiring and promoting women are good for business.
It is important to have diversity of thought because when we meet our customer needs, we keep our customers.
Despite Allstate's commitment to promoting women, only a quarter of its top leaders are women. If that seems unusual, it's not. Women currently hold less than a quarter of the executive offices at the nation's top 1,000 companies. They hold even fewer of those positions at Chicago's top 50 firms. A recent study by global management firm McKinsey & Company found women are less likely to be promoted as manager, hired to senior management positions, and gained access to people and opportunities that accelerate careers. Tierney Remick is an executive recruiter. She says while men and women often start out on the same career trajectory, women start hitting roadblocks around mid-career, in large part because they don't have high-level executives sponsoring them.
Sponsorship is more around advocacy, and it's advocating in those rooms where decisions are being made to put an executive into a role that they may not be absolutely prepared for, but one would take accountability to help get them there.
Women have been fighting for parity since the women's movement propelled them by the millions into the workforce and onto college campuses a half-century ago. They now earn 2/3 of all bachelor's and master's degrees and half of all PhDs. But once in the workforce, many women find themselves unprepared to compete in a culture designed and created by men. That's where personal development programs like this come in.
We've got to focus next on visibility. How are we really being seen as a respected impact player in the company?
Women's Unlimited is designed to help women think more like men. It partners with more than 200 large companies to groom high-potential women for leadership roles. They learn how to find mentors, negotiate for themselves, and network, things that tend to come more easily to men than to women.
You're part of a system. You're part of an organization that you need to be effective in, and you need to understand how you're being seen, how others are experiencing you in a way that supports where you want to go or can be creating some barriers for you.
One potential barrier, says Kristen Lausman, is her communication style. She calls herself a go-getter, but thinks some may consider her abrasive.
Going through this and getting that feedback through others in the organization, it's helped me to realize maybe I'm a little too aggressive, right? And being able to soften my approach and be able to connect more.
Some might say that's a double standard, that if you're a guy,
I know.
it's good to be aggressive.
I know. It is a double standard a little bit.
Arming women with the right tools to shatter the glass ceiling will only get them so far. Management experts say workplace culture also needs to change, and that could be an even bigger challenge.
Especially in fields of science and technology still dominated by men. At Argonne National Laboratory in south suburban Lamont, only about a quarter of the 3,300 employees are women, and none are in top leadership roles.
The way that we are trying to address our diversity challenge is basically by making sure that we have fair hiring practices and making sure we have a diversity in the pipeline of candidates that we consider for positions.
Argonne also launched a leadership institute 2 years ago. Lisa Durham heads it. Durham says one of Argonne's biggest challenges is holding on to women once they get in the door, partly because of work-life balance issues. She thinks changes in the lab's policies are helping.
We've expanded our parental leave. We have an on-site daycare. We have flexible work hours, telecommuting. And I think all these things help support families and help to retain that mid-level career.
Just how long it will take women to reach parity with men is debatable.
I'm making a woman that is just like me, that is powerful, strong, and stands up for people.
The Rockefeller Foundation wants 100 women heading Fortune 500 companies by 2025. Last spring, it launched the 100 by 25 campaign that funds research promoting the advancement of women. But a recent study already uncovered a reason to promote women. It found companies can increase profits by 15% if a third of its leaders are women.
Hey, Robin, do you have a minute?
Back at Allstate, Robin Bronstein mentors young women colleagues. She advises them to take risks and not underestimate their abilities.
They will opt out when they just read a job description. And they go through it like it's a checklist. Well, I can do this, not sure about my skills here. And so they overanalyze, and then they don't even get in the game, and they won't even apply.
But let's think broader.
Bronstein also encourages women to think about their potential and always set their sights high. For In the Loop, I'm Diane Estabrook.
And joining us now to discuss the challenges women face in the work world are Erin Reeves, president of the research and advisory firm Nextions, Angela Howard, founder of ARH Clarity Consulting, and Rebecca Seib, author and lecturer at the University of Chicago Harris School of Public Policy. Welcome to all of you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Important conversation to have. So, Erin, let me start with you. Why do we not see more women in these top positions in the workforce?
Well, one, I think we've been working on it for a very long time. What I've found in my research is not so much that there are things that are missing in women, but that the ways in which you can succeed in business are based on how men succeed, right? So when you look at communication patterns that succeed, you look at self-promotion patterns that succeed. If the system is built on things that come easier to men, it's really difficult for women to be men, obviously. So it's what we're seeing is that women, although they are super qualified and are excellent at what they do, once they get to a point where it is about visibility and some of the other things that you've already talked about, we see that women just don't do it the way men do. And at that point, we actually see women not succeeding as much as men succeeding.
So, Angela, do you agree? Is it the culture and the workplace, or is it women in general?
I would agree with Erin in that it is deeply rooted in stereotypes, deeply rooted in a separation of what we consider feminine and masculine characteristics. And the concept of leadership has been rooted in kind of this segmentation of division of roles that we no longer need to survive, right? We're in a society now where women make up 50% of the workplace. So I would agree in that there is a bit of a separation of how leadership has evolved in organizations and in the workplace, and it has evolved with a masculine undertone.
But Rebecca, what about the idea that women may opt out depending on the job description, or in fact that women may take more time off to be caretakers of children or the elderly?
That data doesn't hold up. If you look at the choices women make Today they opt in to stay. Most families require 2 incomes. So for most women, that's not an option. For women at the upper end of the income scale, it may be. What is important here is the structural discrimination. It is not just a matter of feminine versus masculine doing things differently. If you look across the leadership ranks of any institutional sector, education, business, politics, philanthropy, the further up the ladder you go, the fewer women there are. And when the women are there, for instance, in a CEO position, they are paid significantly less. So we have an ongoing problem, just as we do in this country with racial discrimination, we have with gender discrimination, and particularly in positions of executive leadership.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the gender pay gap because it continues to be debated. So I just want to bring in some statistics here. The National Committee on Pay Equity reports that in 1963, we go back, women made 59 cents for every dollar a man made. Today, that's closer to 80 cents. And the National Women's Law Center reports that Illinois women are losing out on more than $430,000 over a lifetime. So if we do have this structure in place, what about these programs that are in place then in many of these institutions to help women and to put them into these leadership roles? Are they failing women?
Well, I go back to kind of the point that Rebecca made. You know, a lot of these programs are about helping women, right? And women don't need to be helped in that sense. They don't need to be fixed. So if you have structural problems that fundamentally affect the way women can get up, to me, a lot of the programs that have been about helping women are actually just more about saying, yeah, we're doing something. I've researched several of these programs, especially in Fortune 500 companies, and I can tell you most of them don't have any outcomes related to them.
Do we see men going into these programs?
No, of course not, right? So for example, if you ask them, well, what would success look like? So you've been running these programs for 10 years. What is success? They're like, well, we're just glad the women are happy, right? Or the fact that these programs have existed, but the numbers haven't changed, has not caused people to look at these programs and say, well, maybe this isn't what we should be doing. They do a lot of good, but they're not the answer to some of the structural issues that actually keep women out of leadership positions.
Angela, do you have a personal story to share in terms of gender bias in the workplace?
Well, you know, I think as a young woman, you know, in mid-career at this point in shaping and designing her career, I think there is a tendency for young women to, and women in general, to try to fit that mold, right? And I think when you get into the workplace, there's kind of 2 directions you can take. One is you can fit that mold and potentially break that glass ceiling, which has been broken, or you can kind of be you and design your unique skill set and your unique, as a woman, you know, bringing that into workplace, bringing things like care and heart and passion into the workplace. So I think I have similar experiences as many other women who have gone through.
So Rebecca, if a woman is sort of tough and aggressive in the workplace, that has one perception versus a man's perception, they may come off differently, and that may impede them from getting, you know, a higher position.
Well, I think that that's a bit of a bugaboo. Most of the women, I actually had breakfast this morning with a woman CEO of a major company based here in Chicago, and she is as assertive and forthright as any of the men in her field, and she has succeeded very well. I think the real issue here isn't a matter of personal style. It isn't a matter of, and this is important, knowledge or experience or qualifications. I think the tip-off was perhaps in that introductory piece where the gentleman from Oregon talked about a diversity pipeline. It's not about a pipeline, it's about a goal, right? It's about achieving it. I used to tell my staff all the time, I said, let's think about, this was in the era of Michael Jordan at the Bulls. And I would say, Michael was great for us because he made the basket, not because he tried. So the issue here isn't trying to do better, it isn't trying to receive more resumes, it isn't trying to interview more people, it is actually making the basket, which in this case is working really hard as an employer to find a woman who is qualified for the job, and if she is sufficiently well qualified, putting her in it. It is the only way that the profile of leadership is going to change, that affirmative effort. Not a goodwill, not I'm going to try.
What about the confidence factor, though, of women? There may be some perception. There's been some studies about, young girls may not see themselves as smart, perhaps, as boys do, or that perception as to where women have achieved in many fields, where men have achieved in many fields.
Yeah, I look at confidence in two different ways, right? One is if you define confidence in the way confidence has historically been defined in this country, then women are never going to look quite as confident as men, right? For example, I've been told, you were talking about personal examples, I've been told a lot that I smile too much. I have no idea. It doesn't mean I'm happy. I have no idea that I'm smiling. But people have said you don't come across as serious because you smile too much. I have talked to several men, I do a lot of public speaking, I've talked to a lot of men speakers and I've said, has anyone ever commented on you smiling? And the answer is no, right? So if confidence is smiling some miraculous special amount that men do, I'm never going to meet it. So I think part of confidence is how are we defining it? The second part of confidence is if you are constantly coming up against challenges and getting beaten down a little bit, the confidence that you have is more a reflection of what has happened to you as you've tried to assert yourself, not what you naturally came into the world with. So I don't think women fundamentally have a confidence crisis. I think in my life, more women, women are fantastically confident, but if we use a male definition, or if you examine a woman after she's been run through the ringer, then it looks like a female confidence crisis, and I just don't believe that we have that.
Well, many of the same gender issues that women face in business are also seen in politics. Case in point is Hillary Clinton. While her presidential campaign was inspiring to many women, it was her defeat that is motivating them to get into politics. Once again, here is Diane Estabrook.
The day after Donald J. Trump was sworn in as president, in cities across the country and around the world, hundreds of thousands of women, including Stephanie Coleman, had a message for the new administration.
We're not going anywhere. We are leaders. You have to hear our voices.
Betsy Londrigan was one of many politically minded parents who struggled to explain to her daughter how a man with far less political experience than Hillary Clinton and one who bragged about his sexual exploits could become president.
I felt like her nation had just told her that she wasn't worth as much as an unqualified man. I felt like her nation told her she should be happy with her 78 cents on the dollar, that she should be happy with men in power making decisions about her and her body.
Betsy and Stephanie are two of 12 delegates selected to take part in the Illinois Women's Institute for Leadership, or IWIL for short. It's a 9-month boot camp to help Democratic women prepare to run for office.
You are a select group, a diverse group.
Deborah Shore is president of IWIL's board.
It's important that our democratic government, lowercase d, reflect the society we live in.
Nationally, while women make up 50.4% of the population, they still hold less than 20% of the seats in Congress.
I think at the national level, well, maybe before there was a glass ceiling, I really see that changing.
Jillian Burness, a Republican, feels hopeful about the state of women in politics.
I just recently ran for state representative in Illinois, and the incumbent is a woman. And to have two women running for the same position, I think is outstanding. It shows, I think, that gender isn't really important, and it's really the candidate.
For IWIL delegate Rachel Arfa, who is deaf, another important milestone was reached.
When Senator Tammy Duckworth was elected, I realized that that was the first time that there was a woman with a disability in the United States Senate, and that only just now happened in 2016. That took way too much time.
Now, if more than any time, this is our time to really break those barriers. The work is not done.
Training women to run for office remains important and vital. We still need more women to run for city council, for school board, for county board, for water reclamation district, for the state legislature, and for Congress. The job isn't over, and it remains an important and vital mission. When we reach parity and we're there for many years in a row, perhaps we can say our work is done, but not until then.
If we want to see more women in politics, and Hillary Clinton was the first woman to be nominated by her party, but she didn't win, what does that say in terms of setting an example, especially now that we have President Trump in office?
I think, as Dr. King said, the arc of justice, the arc bends toward justice. I can tell you that in my adult lifetime, the notion that a woman would be the candidate of a major party and break the glass ceiling and get more votes than the man who is president was something I couldn't have imagined. So we've made remarkable progress, as Deborah pointed out in the piece. There's a lot more to do. I will tell you that as I did the book tour for my book, which is a guide to women, for women who want to run for office, I met, and from the Mississippi Delta to the middle of Manhattan, I mean, I was everywhere. I met women who want to run for office. They are not dissuaded by the difficulty. They really want to serve the public. They have issues they care about. So what I conclude from that experience and from teaching this topic at the University of Chicago is that if we were able to give all of the women who want to be in public office the resources, the guidance, the coaching, the mentoring, the confidence building, these legislatures, these executive offices would look different. It's difficult for them, and they need all the support we can give them.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the numbers, because in Illinois, women hold 30% of the Illinois Senate seats, only about 40% in the House. So,
Right.
Angela, how do we get more women involved?
I think you know, there's great parallels between women in politics and business, and I think when I think about the glass ceiling, I almost debate the thought of the glass ceiling, right? Because to Rebecca's point, we've kind of broken through that. We've got women in the workplace, we've got women in leadership, we've got women in politics. So it's really about how do we navigate the labyrinth? So a great researcher, her name is Alice Eagley, talked about the glass ceiling morphing into a labyrinth, and how do we navigate the dead ends? So, and how do we navigate the barriers that are in front of us? So when I'm also a career mentor of women with Career Contessa, which is an online site for helping women thrive in their careers. And one of the things I always recommend is, you know, learn what those barriers are, learn where the dead ends are, and how to navigate. And, you know, when you talk about women and mentorship, you may want to think about having a male mentor in order to be able to navigate and push past those barriers.
When we talk about this topic in general, and we talk about gender pay inequality, and we talk about why are there not more women in executive positions or more women in politics, those on the other side, conservatives, or would say these are the liberal talking points, or these are women whining. Is that valid?
Well, one is, when you talk about women in politics, there's two different aspects of it, right? One is we want to see more women run. But the other part is women's rights have to be protected regardless of who is in office. And so to me, I don't care if you're a man, woman, whatever, you don't get to stomp on the human rights that are women's rights, right? Like as Hillary Clinton said. So whether it's reproductive rights, whether it is pay equity, whether it is women in STEM, whether it is women in sports, we kind of sometimes talk about one or the other as if like the way that everything is going to get fixed is if we get more women in office. And there's plenty of female politicians I disagree with. I do want to see more women in office, but I also want us to hold every politician accountable for making sure that they don't constantly subjugate women's rights under the umbrella of other things, right? So
Picking and choosing is what you were thinking of.
I would just add to what Erin said that it's absolutely true that every public official should be held to the same standard, and that is a human rights standard. It is also true, and this is really, really important, that those very policies that serve women, equal pay, reproductive rights, child care, whatever it is, historically, and it is still true, those policies are introduced by female public officials.
Yes.
So we cannot depend on men to do that. We need to elect more of those women and, of course, educate the men.
Do you see more women running because they care about a cause versus men who may say politics is a career?
Yes. Women come to, again, this is the wonky professor talking here, but women come to public office primarily out of concern about an issue. So my favorite example is a problem at the local school, and what happens is the guy says, gee whiz, there's a problem here, I'm going to run for state rep, and he raises his hand the next morning, whereas the woman says, no, I need to go back to school and get a master's degree in education, and then maybe I'll run for state rep.
And if you look at the issues that we're talking about here, we're talking about equality. I mean, why do we need to have a gender pay gap, conversation? Why do we need to have conversations about what we do with our bodies? The issues are just not the same from a male perspective. So of course, when you're inconvenienced, you fight for what's right.
And anytime someone doesn't like what someone is saying, they tend to call it whining, right? So whenever someone says you're whining, I usually respond with, so you don't like what I'm saying. But I do think, to Rebecca's point, women will actually cross party lines also more often than you're seeing that with the nomination of the Secretary for Education, that the two Republicans who crossed over and said, wait a minute, children's education is more important, also happened to be two female Republican senators. And I think there is a point at which women will say, it's not about me, it's not about my power, it is about doing the right thing. At the same time, my frustration sometimes comes in that women will introduce phenomenal legislation, and then the men come in, and they undo it, right? Like some of the executive orders last week were about undoing things that we've already got in place. And there has to be a point where men and women step up and say, you don't get to undo stuff that is about doing the right thing. It's not a Republican thing or a Democratic thing. So sometimes I almost wish, there's times I think we should talk about it as a gender issue. I think other times we should just talk about it as a human rights issue, because it takes away this men-women thing from
What
it.
about this latest? I hear this all the time from companies. We're launching a women's initiative. Women are out there helping women. But in many professions that you all know of, including in the media, women don't always help women.
Well, but I think, again, men don't always help men either. There's only one CEO. There's only one president of the university. There's only one head of the TV station. At a certain point, people compete. It's perfectly natural. It's to be expected. There's nothing the matter with it. And so what is incumbent upon each person who wants to achieve at that level is to build the broadest array of supporters she or he can. And so they're going to be men and women who see you, they think you're good, they're going to support you. And yes, there's going to be other people who are naysayers. I think that, as Aaron said, when people are whining about women not supporting other women, they haven't worked hard enough to make their case and go directly to that woman and say, I really want your support.
I gotta tell you, I've done this research in 3 different companies now, and what I have found is women actually do help women a lot more than the narrative. It's just if there's one woman who didn't help another woman, that story gets told 5,000 times. It gets called things like cat fights. It gets called things.
It's true. You often hear more about cat fights than you hear men. You never hear that with men.
So what is it called when 2 men fight? Just a fight? Why don't we have a term for that, right? So I've gone in companies where people say, well, women helping women here is a huge issue. I'm like, great, let me get into it and talk. It's one time it has happened, and it just has been talked about over and over again. So some of the stuff, I think, is the narrative is actually bigger than the fact, but the narrative has a cute name, like a cat fight, so it gets talked about more than the actual facts.
Well, I wish we had more time. This is obviously a discussion we can go on and on and on about, but wonderful points from all of you, so I really appreciate you coming in. And that concludes tonight's program. I would like to thank our guests, Aaron Reeves, Angela Howard, and Rebecca Sive. Until next week, I'm Lauren Cohn. Good night, everyone.